all for tuning in. This is Selena and
Iman.
together we make you plus happy. Each week we bring you someone who challenges us to define success and happiness on our own terms with a dose of laughter.
Remember to like and subscribe at You Plus Happy Podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at You Plus Happy. Hey, Selena.
Hey, Iman.
So anything that you'd like to share with our listeners from the last week?
Yes, I was talking to my friend Iman for a long time yesterday. And Iman is you. It's her.
That is.
I don't have two friends in Iman. And we were talking about our like get pumped songs. And I can't like remember, for some reason, I can't remember like what my top one is. Like it's just not coming to me. But one of them is Rough Riders Anthem by DMX. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I know. So I know the song.
The podcast is ending, you guys. Because you don't know,
I don't know the names of things. I just know the song.
Okay. This is me that you don't know this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What? Like, girl.
I don't know the names of it.
Oh, I'm a huge DMX fan. So like he's up there for me. And yeah. So that's the one that's coming to mind. Mm-hmm. Like a rap and Ambitious as a Rider by Tupac. But I'm not like I'm not a gangster. Just in my mind. Just in my mind.
Your mind and heart.
Yes, the soul. But that's all I can come up with. I'm gonna bring some different songs to y'all next week. What's yours?
So you already know I love Lizzo. So I don't know if it's one song. I feel like all of her music is hype, but probably I don't know the name of it, but the one
Why men so they gotta be great.
Something, that gets me just up and going every time.
That song was on a movie and it made me like it. They went through a breakup and she was drinking and she was like, why men great, so they gotta be great. I was like,
hey. Yes, but I do love most of Lizzo's stuff. I'm a fan, so that is my hype
music. Nice. Okay, so who do we have on the show this week?
This week, we have Carla Santamaria. Carla is a first-generation immigrant born in Honduras and raised in Miami, Florida. She is a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner and a critical reflection advocate and a confidence and success coach. She does a lot, you guys. Mm-hmm. For years, she's been guiding families, friends, and friends of family through major transitional life milestones, helping them navigate change with purpose and be set up for success. After much encouragement, she decided to offer her expertise on a broader community and launch Coached by Carla. Her goal is to help women and people of color overcome imposter syndrome. So we'll talk about what that is in the podcast. Increase their confidence and successfully self-advocate so they can reach their goals. Carla has her master's degree in community psychology from the University of Miami, a bachelor's from Florida International University, and over 10 years of academic and career coaching experience. Carla is a firm believer in the power of positivity, hard work, and putting out into the universe what you'd like to be reflected back onto you. She believes success is founded at the intersection of mindset and purposeful action and uses the strategy to help her clients live out their dreams. So welcome, Carla.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi. So we'll hop in. So I guess just the first question is, how did you get started?
So I think that is That is a great question. I can't recall the exact moment that I got started with, like mindset and success coaching, because it's something that I've been doing for so long. I just left higher education, but I was in higher ed and K through 12 education for about 10 years. So students coming to me as they approach a transition in their life was part of my day-to-day experience. And even eventually it started being that former students were coming to me. Oh, hi, Miss Carla. I just graduated from college and I wanted to talk to you about, potentially interviewing for a job, or even, friends, family, my best friend's little sister, she messaged me, hey, like so and so said you're really good at this. Can you help me? And so for the longest time, I had kind of joked around that, oh, I should do this on the side. I should open my own, career consulting, career coaching business. And I guess at one point I realized, you know what, I should do this on the side and open my own career and coaching business. Like it became this thing that I said, oh, I would be really good at this. And then I realized, well, there's nothing stopping me, just me. So then that's how I decided to launch Coached by Carla.
I love it.
Has there been a time when there was a turning point and you realized you had to take a different path than what was expected of you?
Yes. Oh, yes. Quite a few times. So you want a light one or a traumatic one?
Traumatic's better, right? If you feel like it.
Yes, we're comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. All
I'm probably
right.
gonna take a lot out of you.
Okay. Well, I was raised Mormon, so Latter-day Saint. And I don't know if you're familiar with the religion, but on the surface, it's very family oriented and very, do the right thing, be good and be honest. And I love that. That was amazing. I was really like a true believer. I thought that I would be Mormon for the rest of my life and for eternity, because Mormons believe in life after death. And several years ago, maybe about 6 years ago, I started sort of having these internal doubts of, what if this is not all true? And I remember telling myself, like, if this isn't true, your whole life is a lie. And so, and the ways that Mormons use the word true isn't just like true or false, but it's true as in the truth, true as in the gospel truth. The church is true. Jesus Christ is true. And so I was kind of sitting with that for a while. And then this was also around the time of like the 26, 20, leading up to the 2016 presidential election. And I started seeing that a lot of people in my faith were Trump supporters. And I just could not comprehend that. And I was like, you guys, aren't we all about family values? Aren't we all about doing the right thing? This man is a sexual predator and brags about it. This man is a con artist and brags about it. Why are you following him? And so I was sitting with that. I was sitting with some of my previous doubts. And then eventually somebody began to stalk me. And I say this jokingly because it really, it wasn't. It was quite horrible. But I didn't acknowledge it at the time. It was only after I left that I finally said, hey, I was actually being stalked and no one did anything about it. And so I've been sitting with my doubts for a year. I've been sitting with my heartbreak over the presidential election. I've been sitting with my disappointment, and the people that I loved and looked up to turned out to be closeted racists, you know. And then I started to get stalked, and nobody was listening to me. And I'm trying to say, hey, like, this man is a predator. We need to keep him away from the women. And again, nobody was listening. It culminated into like this horrible incident in which I was in a room with a few of the quote unquote leaders. And this man who was like obsessed with me, and he was a very large man. He was like 6'3" and very, very, very heavy set. So he was just a very large person. came in and had me in a corner and was just saying like, oh, why don't you want to be my friend? Why don't you want to give me a hug? And all the people in the room just sat there and watched that happen. And so, sorry, I did not wake up today expecting to talk about this, but you know, I was flabbergasted. I was like, this is supposed to be the leadership, and you guys just sat there and watched it happen. Eventually, to his credit, one person did get up and walk with him out, but the rest of them were like, well, if you hadn't done X, Y, and Z, he wouldn't have done that. And then that's when I ran out. Well, I walked out, but then I ran to my car, and I was like sobbing by the time I got to my car, and I had to take a break. Like I went back and I spoke to the congregational leader, and I was like, listen, you guys don't have my back. This is not a safe space for me. This is not a safe space for any women anywhere. And I tried to go to a different congregation, to a different meeting house, but it was just too much. You know, like it was, I over a year of heartbreak and disappointment and doubt, and then also seeing like, wow, I am in the middle of a place that perpetuates rape culture and doesn't do anything. And it was actually, and it was a really difficult path to take, to say, hey, I'm going to leave the faith of my youth. I'm going to leave the faith of my family, because I no longer believed, you know. And so, and it was that moment, and you know, being stalked and everything. Yeah, that was horrible. But I think the most traumatic part of it for me was feeling like the ground that I was standing on completely disappeared. And there's no other way to describe how I felt, because the foundation that I had built my life on was gone. And so it was really, you know, I spent the next 2 or 3 years rebuilding my life and doing things, you know, for myself and on my own way and in my own timing. You know, even it was things like journaling. I love journaling. I love writing down in my journal, but for a long time I didn't, because Mormonism taught that journaling is something that you should do. So of course, when I left Mormonism, I left everything. But it took me a while to realize, oh no, you can still journal. This is an important part of who you are. And so looking back, I always think that I left Mormonism for the exact same reasons that I believed in Mormonism, because I thought I believe in, you know, in equity. I believe in treating people fairly and kindly. You know, I believe in equal rights. And when I thought Mormonism, you know, was aligned with all those values, yes, I was fully in. But after, you know, a couple of years of sitting there in discomfort and doubting, and then being stalked and realizing, hey, this is actually a really misogynistic, oppressive culture and doctrine, I had to leave. And so that is a really long way of saying, yes, I have felt like I've had to go my own way. I also changed my major in college, you know, so there was that.
That was the light one. That was
yes.
that was the light story.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And it seems like, I'm sorry you had to go through all of that, but it seems like it's made you get to the point you're at now. What were some of the things you mentioned, like journaling, but what were some of the other things that you did to kind of get to this place of like, I'm leaving everything that I know and kind of rebuilding who I am?
So I started therapy. I was very fortunate that I was in grad school and I had access to counseling included with my tuition. And I always say included with my tuition, not free, because grad school is definitely not free. But yeah, so I started therapy, and it was, and that was really the main thing that allowed me to swap out, to start rebuilding my life. You know, it really felt, there were so many feelings. There were feelings of shame. There were feelings of insecurities. There were feelings of, you know, trying to find myself. Like I used to think that I was somebody that had a lot of friends. No, I was somebody who saw the same people Sundays at church and Wednesdays during our activity night, and sometimes on the weekend. I was part of a social club that we were all really devoted to, but they weren't actually my friends, because when I left, most of them ended their friendship with me, and so trying to figure out who I was, I yeah, I had a really poor relationship with alcohol for a while. Um, I also began to feel that in my body, like I had debilitating stomach pain for months. I ended up in surgery for appendicitis. Funny story, I had gone to see a Broadway show in New York for my birthday, and I was having this horrible stomach pain. And I was thinking, do I get on a flight to go back home? What if they had to stop the plane? Like, I'm going to be on the news. Florida woman grounds flight because her appendix ruptured. And I was just like, but if I don't, what am I going to do here? I can't be at the hospital by myself. And so, anyway, I got on the flight. I got home. It was fine. But then eventually I did end up at the hospital, and I did end up having surgery. And that also was a marker in that it forced me to slow down. It forced me, I think, to let go of the rage that I had been feeling, because I felt, among many things, I felt robbed of like money, but also robbed of time, robbed of freedom, robbed of my agency. And having surgery, in addition to therapy, it forced me to say, you know what, I can't carry this anger with me. I I need to do what is good for my mental health. I need to continue going to therapy. I need to get back into journaling. I used to love journaling. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to share what happened to me with everyone. And don't get me wrong, some people who I love are still in that belief system, but they all know what happened to me. Um, and I think I still walk a fine line between, I remember what I believed in when I was Mormon, so I respect the folks who still believe that. But it's also, I know what I know now, and I have to speak my truth. And so I also, again, was in grad school, ended up writing my thesis on religious disaffiliation. So I guess how I made sense of myself is making sure that other people had done the same thing, and I'm like, oh, religious trauma syndrome. I'm not the only one, you know? So yeah, so really just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, slowly building myself back up, and finally getting to the place that I live authentically. And like I said, I look back and I think I left Mormonism for the same reasons that I stayed. So who I am inside, who I am at my core, my values, that's still me. And learning to disentangle what Mormonism told me to be between what I want to be and who I am, that's what helped me to be at a place where I am now.
Yeah. And I think something that you said that applies to a lot of, I don't know about everyone, but when it's like, you just knowing you're not the only one. So when you will, anything that I've gone through, even if it's someone online, I'm like, they went through it too. And not like misery loves company, you don't want to bring people down, but just that comfort of knowing that you're not the only person in the world who's experienced this. Like, that doesn't say I don't have to process it and do the work to deal with it and get over it, not get over it, but just to process it. But I think that's a really, really important part of it. That's always been very comforting.
Yes, thank you.
So is there a time, and this can be about whatever comes to your mind, but was there a time when you felt like you failed, and what was your biggest takeaway from that failure?
Okay. I mentioned that I was in education for the last 10 years, and I recently left that. After grad school, I was job hunting, and I got offered a job, and it was at an institution that I was really looking forward to working with. And when they offered me the salary, I didn't negotiate. I didn't negotiate. I took the number they gave me, even though I felt it was way too low. I took the number they gave me. And I had this nagging doubt that that wasn't the correct number. And so I didn't negotiate because I was told, hey, HR is going to come up with an algorithm based on your education and the year's experience and then spit out a number. It's out of my hands. And I was like, okay, sure, that sounds like a totally legit reason, right? So why would I go up against that? But I sort of always had this nagging suspicion that that wasn't the case. And so when you say I failed, immediately what came to me was accepting that job without negotiating. Now, I ended up loving the work that I was doing. I was working with students. I was promoting voting rights. Well, not officially, but I was helping students vote. I was doing voter education. So no lobbying, but voter education, voter awareness, doing a lot of really meaningful, impactful work, but feeling underpaid and resentful. You know, whenever I thought about it, whenever I thought about, you know, that degree, that was definitely not free. So after about, I don't even know, just a year and some change, it was Latina Equal Pay Day. And so I had a scheduled, you know, check-in with my boss. And I was like, hey, listen, it's Latina Equal Pay Day, and I need to know that I'm getting equal pay for equal work. And this man was totally dismissive, like absolutely dismissive. And I'm just like, okay, boomer, you know. Ended up talking to his boss, ended up his boss had to go to HR, ended up having to do an audit of my salary, all to find out, oh, guess what, you know, that master's degree you worked so hard for, you know, that master's degree that wasn't officially conferred before you were hired, we just decided not to give you credit for it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awful. And so Latina Equal Pay Day was in October. I got this news February. And I was so upset, so let down by this institution. And also feeling a lot of flashbacks from when I left Mormonism, you know, because as I shared, I was like, oh, I can't believe this institution did this to me. And what everybody's telling me is just leave. You know, I was like, but why do I have to be the one that leaves? You know, like, I love it here. Why do I have to be the one that has to give up something I love? Why can't I get justice? Why is my answer, you know, like, why is the answer that I'm getting leave? Eventually I did end up leaving because I talked to HR, and HR told me, well, if you weren't happy with the offer, you shouldn't have taken it. Yeah, I was, I almost rage quit that day, but I did not. I was trying to buy a house.
We've all been there on a rage quit feeling.
Yes. Yeah, but I promise you, I started job hunting with a vengeance. And I, again, like, I look back and maybe if I had advocated for myself from the very beginning, it wouldn't have felt like such a failure, and it wouldn't have cost this snowball thing 2 years down the road. But what I learned is it's never too late to start advocating for yourself. Always listen to your gut. If you have a suspicion, speak up. You know what I mean? Like, I had the suspicion, and I had it for over a year before I spoke up. And keep going. And you know what? As unfair and unjust as it may be, I did have to leave because ultimately that was what was right for me. I was not going to get restitution. You know, I was not even going to get an adjustment. They basically told me tough luck. And I was like, well, tough luck to you, because now I'm leaving.
Do you think, because you said it took a year for you had that nagging feeling for a year before you spoke up. Why do you think we have this feeling, like we are knowing, but we ignore it for so long instead of, is it, like, why do you think we do that? And it's not, it happens like in every area of our lives. It's not just work. And it's like, if I had just listened to myself from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Why didn't I trust myself for a year?
Yes. I think there's a lot of reasons, especially as women, especially as a Latina. I didn't want to be the angry brown woman. You know what I mean? I also felt like I should be grateful. I also felt like I should be grateful. Um, like I have been conditioned to just be grateful for, for the things that are given to you. Even though, first of all, this job wasn't given to me. I was the most qualified candidate. That's why I was hired. Um, so I think maybe fear of being wrong. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, we may be gaslighting ourselves. Maybe we were wrong in the past and we're doubting our intuition. Maybe we're confusing our intuition with our anxiety. You know, so I think there's a lot of reasons why, unfortunately, we're not listening to ourselves. But I think that the more we practice, or at least personally, like I have to write down what I'm feeling. I have to write down, hey, how does this feel? Pros, cons. Because even when I have to like force myself to write a pro con list, I have to force myself to put it in a place, and I'm like, this is the pro, or is this a con? And sometimes I do write it in both places, but it's okay to acknowledge the mixed feelings. So I think also there's that, the lack of acknowledgement, or yeah, so all of those things.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to combat it, like making those lists and over time, I don't know, over time, just learning to trust yourself, like, and to understand the feelings. Like you said, you're like, is this anxiety? Is this me? Like, am I just tripping, or is this real? Like, it's like, so I don't know. I wish we just trusted ourselves a month in, and then we would just save ourselves so much crap.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually do want to share something. I was at an unconscious bias training, and part of it, during part of this training, they showed us like photos of maybe about 12 different people. And they were different ages, different races, different demeanors. Like there was a guy with like a ZZ Top beard. There was a guy that had, like sleeves of tattoos all the way up to his neck. And there was this one guy in like a tweed suit. And I saw that person and I was like, oh my God, that looks like a serial killer. And this is an unconscious bias training. And I was like, Carla, no, just because he's a middle-aged white guy doesn't mean he's a serial killer. And so I was sitting there like trying to examine my biases. And I'm like, why would you think that about this person? Anyway, so the next slide, the question, oh, who would you want to go to brunch with? And everybody is obviously like picking people that they resonate with. And then we're all talking about our biases. And then they realize, oh, and this person is a NASA engineer. And this person is a youth activist for gun reform. And this person is Ted Bundy.
Wow.
Right. And this was recently. So I think for me, that was like, okay, go with your gut, girl. Like, do not think that you have to be polite. You know what I mean? Like if your gut is telling you this man is a serial killer, just run the other way. Even if he's not, something is wrong. Your subconscious is picking something up. Trust yourself and go. And obviously this was over the safety of like a Zoom meeting, but it was again another clear and strong reminder for my own self. Trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I'm wondering, I think that's so important because like you guys said, it's sometimes we know, but we just don't do anything about it. I'm wondering because I know you talked about imposter syndrome a little bit and like how you, and I guess for our listeners, what that is and like how you decided to have that be one of your focuses in your coaching.
Yes. So imposter syndrome is basically like this fear that our achievements are not good enough, that our skills, that whatever we do is not going to be good enough, and that we're not deserving of the success that we have. It's sort of this internalized fear that we're going to be seen as a fraud in whatever area of life, we may have doubts about. And I decided, it was actually really kind of accidental that I started focusing on imposter syndrome. Well, maybe not accidental, but responsive. When I launched my coaching business, I knew that people came to me when they were at a transition period in their lives, whether that means that they're getting ready to graduate from college and going to a job, or that they're maybe getting their first promotion, or maybe they're going back into grad school, or maybe they're leaving grad school. So, or maybe they're moving across the country. What do I do? I'm going to be all alone in this new city. And so I knew that the common denominator in my in my skill set was helping people navigate transitions. Excuse me. I knew that the common denominator in my skill set was helping people navigate transitions. But as I tried to explain that, it wasn't really resonating with people. But I just kept on sharing my journey, and it was graduation season. So I shared when I got my master's degree, and I shared, hey, these are some of the things that I wish someone had told me. And one is, first, you earned your spot here. You didn't get here by accident. Second is trust yourself. I don't remember the third one, but basically I roughly and loosely mentioned how don't let imposter syndrome make you doubt yourself. And then everybody latched onto that. They were like, oh my God, that's how I feel. So then I shared some tips on how to overcome your imposter syndrome, and one of them is document your success. I like writing things down. I'm such a nerd. So write down what you have accomplished, because on hard days, it's easy to look back and, it's easy to forget. But when you have a list of things you have accomplished, it is great. It makes you feel like, oh yeah, I got this. And there was a couple of, be open to new opportunities and be open to learning in the journey. And then again, people, that was what people always responded to. And that was what people messaged me about and asked me about. And then I realized that I was like, oh, this is what my skill set is. Like, this is the language that people recognize. And even, and I talk about how it can pop up now. Now I talk about how it can pop up whenever we're in a period of transition, whenever we are experiencing growth, whenever we're moving beyond their comfort zone, there's that room for fear to go in. And so I guess in a way, that is another common denominator between, in my skill set that I didn't realize at the time, or that I couldn't articulate clearly. But based on, like having conversation with people and the feedback that I was getting and what people were coming to me for, it was imposter syndrome. So that's my focus on, that's what I focus on these days. I'm actually hosting a workshop in a couple of weeks on navigating imposter syndrome, and I'm going to be focusing on coding your strengths. So it's going to be a really interactive session of helping participants write down a time when they experience success. All right, what skills did you use? What made this successful? Okay, how did you learn that skill? How did you learn that skill? How did you know I was successful? And do this pattern recognition, because we are, humans are creatures of habit. Humans are creatures of patterns. And guess what? If you're a fish, you should swim. If you're a monkey, you should climb a tree. Stop trying to climb a tree if you're a fish. Yeah. So I really believe in like leaning into our strengths and anchoring ourselves in our strengths. And so that is what can help us overcome this feeling of self-doubt. So I guess that is how I began talking about imposter syndrome. And what I've found most interesting is that the people who come to me are coming to me when they're experiencing transitions in their life, and I was like, oh, okay. So we're finally at an energy that this is the same energy that I was trying to communicate, but I finally found the wavelength that people are receptive to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of that workshop, just focusing on your strengths, because I think it's so easy to point out other people's strengths, but then when it comes to identifying your own, it's challenging for sure. And like you, I like lists, so we are nerds together in this, but I'm definitely going to try that, just writing down accomplishments, because sometimes it's like you work so hard for this point, you get it, and then you're like, all right, so what's the next thing? And don't take time to really, at least I don't, to acknowledge what you've accomplished in that moment. So
Yes, absolutely. And that's also a really common thing that people experience, that there's this pressure. And it's one of the things that cause imposter syndrome, actually, like being the high achieving kid in your family, being the first one to go to college, or being even, what I mean? Like if you come from an immigrant background, like you have this pressure to succeed, to make your parents' sacrifice worth it. Or whatever background, that your parents sacrificed, to make that sacrifice worth it. but like being the high achieving person in your family, with your friends, or being seen as like just all these pressure that we put on kids without realizing it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? When we test them into, advanced reading, when we test them into the gifted program is what they call it here. Or, here in South Florida, I don't know what they call it in other places, but it's basically like just this putting this pressure of like, you are smart and you have to do amazing things. And so then, like you and like a lot of people, we tend to then live our life as like, okay, what's next? All right, I graduated valedictorian. All right, what is the best college that I can go to? All right, how can I triple major and quadruple minor? I worked at the University of Miami, and all those kids were like double and tripling majoring in like engineering and pre-law and pre-med. And I'm just like, you guys ever sleep? You know? And again, they really felt that pressure to succeed. And again, not just to succeed, but to check the next things off your list. All right,
Yeah.
I got into the top, the best school that I could get into. All right, now I need to get, the most challenging major or whatnot. Now I need to get into the best law firm. So check, check, check. And when do you pause to live in the moment? When do you pause to acknowledge your growth? When do you pause to just be happy?
Yeah. And when you're always chasing something, it's like you're never going to be content. I know we should always have goals and keep growing, but it's like, when do you ever feel like fulfilled or that sense of like contentment? So, or I think that's important. And then another thing you said about the workshop and the strengths, I love like focusing on your strengths and just cultivating those instead of worrying about your weaknesses and like thinking we have to try to be good at everything at some level. No, I feel like know your weaknesses and just know that ain't gonna be you. Like, let's just focus on what you do well and make that and be amazing at that. So I love that when you said, the fish swims and the monkey climbs the tree. It's like the monkey's not gonna be like, let's swim. He might get some water, but like that's not what he's gonna do on a regular basis. So I love that. What's been you're describing working with the kids, and then you have the workshop, the imposter syndrome, all these things you study. What's your biggest motivation? What drives this?
So there's two motivators. One is I want to reach financial independence. Definitely want to retire in the next 5 years. So, and I realized, hey, accepting a job where I don't even negotiate my pay, not the vibe. You know what I mean? Like my parents did not give up their homeland for me to come here and be okay with being underpaid. I didn't grow up, living with I didn't give up living with my grandmother for me to come here and be underpaid. So definitely, like I in, full transparency, I launched my coaching business because I wanted an additional stream of income.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a million ways to make money. And I didn't pursue those because they didn't burn a passion in me. Because I see some of my amazing friends, I see some amazing students who are just like so amazing and then they don't realize it. You know what I mean? Or who are so afraid of their own potential. And so that is my equally important motivator. Like I think they fuel each other, because when I first started my coaching business, I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. And I love my 9 to 5 and I love my corporate job and I love being on both sides on like corporate America and doing things like changing things is at a structural level, but also, working with the individual. And I still do love my corporate job, but I'm wondering like, how much more impactful can I be with my coaching business? You know what I mean? Like it's so yeah. So so I'm navigating that space. And so when I first decided, hey, I need, I'm not getting paid enough at this job. What am I going to do? I thought, oh, I'm just going to just quit my job and sell zucchini bread at farmers markets and just live off the grid and nobody can ever find me and just live a simple life. Okay, I made zucchini bread like that one weekend, and it was really good, but I'm not gonna do that for the rest of my life. But coaching, primarily women of color, but also, queer and trans people of color, does bring me so much fulfillment because my goal is to help as many people see themselves through the eyes of their biggest cheerleader. Because why is it so easy for us to see ourselves through the eyes of our worst critic and so hard for us to see ourselves through the eyes of our biggest cheerleader? So that's what fuels me. That's what gets me going. I, like just like that desire of like, hey, I finally snapped out of it and realized my worth after years of helping other people realize their worth, and just like by accident. So now that I'm doing this on purpose, I just have so much energy for it, such a passion for it, because I think that we need individuals to realize their power, and the more the better, and then the more individuals who realize their power, the more collective power they can have. So that is I guess in a nutshell what fuels me.
That's amazing.
I love that. And it's apparent that you're so passionate about what you're doing. I think me and Selena talk about it all the time. Like, we want to do something that brings passion and joy, and it's not just a 9-to-5 type thing.
Yeah.
What is something that you hope people say about you when you're not in the room?
Oh, wow. I'm having a hard time with that one because there are a couple of things coming to mind. What's coming to mind is some of the more meaningful just pieces of feedback that I've gotten recently. Like one of my friends, she's like my mom's age, but I love her. She was so amazing, so supportive. She called me effervescent, and I really like that. I've been called bubbly since I was like 8 years old, and I moved to the United States, and people were calling me things in English instead of in Spanish. But I got called effervescent, which I don't know, that was really nice. But that's not necessarily what I want to be known for. What is also coming to mind is I saw a tweet or something recently that said you get to meet your 90-year-old self, and she can tell you 4 words. What are they? Or 3 words. What are they? And I thought, if I get to meet my 90-year-old self, what do I want her to say to me? I want her to say to me, "You lived well."
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's what I want people to say about me, that I'm doing good in the world. Like that is, yeah, that's that is something that's really important to me, and I hope that I can be known for that, for trying to do good in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that you retired in 5 years. You said you would.
Oh.
You retired young.
Yes.
I want them to say
Yeah.
that for you. I hope we can all say that in 5 years or less.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So the whole reason we started the podcast was about success, because all our culture here, it's like this push to be successful, to chase money and chase the next thing and have the highest status and blah, blah, blah. So what is success to you though?
Living, not leaving, living a meaningful life that brings me joy, that is comfortable, that is aligned with my values. So as you can tell, what I do for a living is important to me. And I need to be able to do something meaningful as a way to earn a living. But I also want to live a balanced life. I want to have a life that allows me to be generous with those that I love, and also have time for myself, have time to work on jigsaw puzzles, all day Saturday afternoon, if that's what I want. Have time to go on a bike ride and get lost in this new neighborhood and say like, oh, wow, that's a nice house. And then try to Google map my way home because I don't know where I am. So yeah, so I think success is that for me. It's just living a life that is meaningful and that allows me to do the things that I love with the people that I love.
Yeah, Iman and I, you're speaking our language. We were just talking about that yesterday amongst ourselves. Like, we need work-life balance. We both are ambitious and we have dreams and goals, but nothing can like take all of our time because it's just not gonna, it just doesn't work for us. So I hear you on that balance for sure. Yeah.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
I guess switching gears a little bit, but we talk a lot about just kind of who we surround ourselves with and like our inner circle. So what traits or personality do your friends have to be in your inner circle?
Great question. So I'm thinking of my friends, and I'm thinking of the friends that I've had for 10 years, the friends who stuck with me through Mormonism. So first of all, who were friends with me when I was Mormon and I was trying to get them to go to church with me. According to one of them, I one time said, God doesn't like it when you jaywalk. I don't know. I don't recall that, but it also doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility that I would have said that. And so I think that I'm just going to describe them, so what traits do my friends have to have? They have to be honest, and they have to see the power in kind honesty instead of brutal honesty. Sometimes people hide behind like, oh, I'm just honest. No, you're just a jerk. So I don't know if I can curse here, but you're not quote unquote honest because you can deliver the truth in a kind way, in a loving way, and sometimes the best thing that you can do for your friends is tell them a truth that they don't want to hear in a way that they will be receptive to hearing it.
And I think when it's necessary too, like every truth isn't necessary to say. If you're just being truthful because it feels good to you and it's not serving the other person, I don't think that's necessary. And so it's like, you have to be kind and decipher and have enough intelligence to decipher the two. Because one truth to me may not even be a truth to you. So I think, yeah, along all those lines, do it in the right way. Anyway, I'm not saying that your friends have to do that.
Clearly, Selena's friends have to do that.
Just don't be telling me any old truth under the guise of you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? I said that my friends have to be honest in a kind way. So I guess that requires both honesty and kindness.
Yeah.
And I think they also have to have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? We need to be able to laugh at the ridiculousness that is our lives, just like our collective whole. Like we need to be able to laugh together. We need to be able to cry together. You know what I mean? We need to be able to sing along on a road trip for hours and hours together. So yeah, in order of importance, kindness and honesty, laughter, compassion, and then also good taste in music.
Necessary.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to our listeners if you could only give them one piece or two or three, whatever you want to say?
Yeah. So pause and reflect. And that's one thing together. You know what I mean? Those are not two pieces of advice. It's one advice together. Pause and reflect. Now, as I've said 100 times, I like to write. I bought myself a journal and I went to the botanical gardens and I was like, oh, I'm only going to be here for half an hour. I wrote for like 3 hours. Not everybody can do that. And definitely other times I've taken my journal to the botanical gardens and written half a page and gotten distracted because, nature is so pretty. Excuse me. But just pausing and reflecting. I like to do that in nature with a pen and paper, but I also can do that when I'm driving and, and I just turn off all distractions in my car. I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm not listening to music. I'm not listening to the news. I'm not trying to win radio station contests, which I have done in the past multiple times. Um, so no, I just turn off all the noise. So pause and reflect. What am I doing with my life? Am I happy with the choices I am making? Am I making choices right now, or am I just letting life take me? Am I in control of my life, or am I letting circumstances control me? And so I'm a huge fan of reflection. It's one of the things that I use in my coaching practice, helping my clients pause and reflect. And it's how we find our, their strengths and things like that. But just self-reflection. Reflection allows us to make meaning of our experiences. Reflection allows us to examine an experience and think critically about it and to learn from it. Like if we're going through life, busy, 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 so much noise on 100% of the time. I mean, and I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I listen to things in the shower and then I could never have a moment of silence. But making the conscious effort to pause and reflect, that is so crucial, because that is where you can recenter yourself. That is when you can quiet down our minds. I know when things have been hard for me, I tend to run away from quiet times. I tend to overfill my life so I don't have to listen to myself think, because I'm scared of what my thoughts are going to say. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. And so again, just pausing and reflecting. Pause and think about your life. Pause and think about your choices. Pause and think about how you're spending your time. And it doesn't have to be, and I guess people call that meditating. You know what I mean? Now that I'm describing it, I realize that it might be meditating. I've never really identified with that word.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I'm calling it pause and reflect. Because you can do this at any time. You know what I mean? Hopefully you're not at a lecture hall and, completely tuning out your professors, or you're not at a meeting at work. But yeah, just make time to pause and reflect. That is the biggest piece of advice, because that can help us find our happiness. That can help us find what we need to be happy. It can help us, come up with our own definition of success. It can help us figure out what we're holding on to that we should be letting go of, and things like that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
I guess just going off of that really quick, because you talked about what needs to happen to find your happiness, but for you, when are you happiest? Like, what makes you happy?
I am happy when I'm spending time with, I'm happy when I have time freedom and I'm choosing it to spend it with my loved ones. That makes me happy. When I think about my perfect day, I would be spending time with people that I love. I would be going to the botanical gardens with my family, maybe my mom, maybe my niece and nephew. I'd be running around with my dog. I'd be spending time in nature. I'd be spending my entire day with my loved ones. But I also have self, like alone happy things. You know what I mean? Like I know that, and these are the things that I make an effort to try to do at least once a week. But sometimes, things get crazy, and then I have to pause and reflect and realize I haven't done my self-care items. I need to do this, and those are the things. Like I like to have my nails painted, and it doesn't necessarily make me like happy in the grand scheme of things, but it does make me feel good about myself. You know what I mean? And so like that little boost of like, I look so nice, so that's like a little bit of self-care that can, like if I'm not taking this small time for like the self-care, then I know that my life is chaotic in other ways and I'm not happy, spending time in nature, as I've said that before. And also just spending time alone with my thoughts. I can do that. I have jigsaw puzzles that I love. I like to go bike riding. And these are, again, not my definition of happiness, but these are the things that help me keep my life in balance so that I can spend the time with those I love and be okay. and not say like, oh my God, like, why do you need so much from me? You know, or whatever, or snap at them for no good reason, or, you know, be cranky or anything of that. Like in order for me to be happy doing the things that I know make me happy, I have to take care of myself and do those things that I know help me be balanced.
Sounds like you're in touch. And I think that's the first step, right? Because people don't even, like you said, will pause and reflect. We'll take time to, not telling anyone what to do, but just pause and reflect and think about the things that make you happy, even if it's something small, like painting your nails or going for a bike ride. Like and if you know that, you can tap into it when you need it. Just as, you know, when you're like, oh man, I need some happy today, and you know what you need. So I think that's amazing, an amazing practice to have, at least to know what brings you that joy. Listen,
Yes, thank you.
I know we're running out of time here. I did want to ask, is your workshop online?
Yes, my workshop is going to be via Zoom. I have it scheduled for October 21st. That's a Thursday. Yes, Thursday, October 21st at 8 p.m. And so that's Eastern New York time. Yeah, so those on the West Coast here in the US hopefully have a chance to get off work and join. You know, I am going to be including the link in my bio on my Instagram. And I really, you know, like I've been thinking a lot about this workshop, and I've been wanting to offer it since I launched my coaching business. And I think that I'm finally, like you said, in touch. I finally overcome my own fear of like, who am I to try to teach people? And I'm like, you've been doing this for 10 years. You've been professionally doing this for 10 years. What's the difference between having somebody else sign your paychecks, between you having your institute, you know, your name behind it? So getting over my own fear, getting over my own imposter syndrome, and recognizing that, yes, I have been doing this specific thing, this specific coding for a handful of years, and I'm really excited. I'm coming from a place of, I know that I can help people be their most amazing selves, because all I'm doing is holding up a mirror. You know what I mean? Like all I'm doing is giving you a toolkit to look into the mirror and say, oh wow, look at her. She is amazing at public speaking. She is amazing at resilience. She is resourceful. She is this, she is that. Like, I am not giving you any of those skills. I am just helping you realize that you have them. And so I'm really excited about this workshop, because there's so much empowerment that comes from knowing your strengths and putting them into practice, and having that as, it's like, okay, I have this new project and I've never done that before, but these are the things I know I'm good at. So this is how I'm going to approach that project. You know, so like there's that empowerment from knowing that you have skills. First of all, like let's acknowledge how many of us go through life thinking we don't have skills. So that's my workshop. Thank you for asking about it. I'm really, really excited about it.
Sure. October 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find out where it is on and the link's going to be in your bio on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
So it's at Coached by Carla. So it's Coached by Carla.
And that will be in the show notes too. Yes, we will tag you and all of that good stuff.
Yes, I'm excited for your workshop. So we don't have anything else. We're gonna wrap this up. Is that okay? Everybody good?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I loved excuse me, I loved this conversation. I loved I'm so excited, and I am definitely happier than I was this morning. So thank you.
So good. So we're going to close out. Thank you, Carla, for sharing your time with us and inspiring our listeners to redefine success for themselves.
And of course, thank you, listeners. We could not do this without you. Remember to hit like and comment on this episode, leave a review. We always want to hear your feedback. You can subscribe at You Plus Happy Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube.
We'll see you next week, same time, same place. And we ask our guests, Everescent Carla, to say our tagline. And the tagline is, we'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
So we'll show you our definition of success if you show us yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Carla, for talking to us. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, bye.